Hi, welcome if you're new. My name is Melina and today we're going to be doing my October wrap-up. Let's start chatting. As always, I'm going by the information in my bullet journal, so if I'm looking down for like a quick second, that's what I'm looking at. I want to start with what I'm currently reading because I'm currently reading two books right now. I'm currently reading People Watching by Hannah Bonam-Young, and I'm about, I want to say like 75 to 80% through. The other book that I'm reading is Crash Course by Amy James. Two totally different books. I mean, they're both on the romance spectrum, but just the feel of both of them is very different. One is an LGBTQ plus like male romance, and the race car, so it's F1, it's really fun. And the other one is more of a small town male female self-discovery, self-growth romance. I'm enjoying both of them a lot, and they're both, like I said, differently though, because they're not similar at all, but I'm enjoying them both. I was hoping to finish it before this video, but I just really haven't had the chance. So unfortunately, you'll get the wrap up and my thoughts on those fully next month. But let's continue on with what I read at the end of September, right after my video. I did mention I was reading two books and I did finish them both in September before October started. So the first one on my list is Fearless by Lauren Roberts. This is the final book, or I mean it is the original final book in the series, the Fearless trilogy. Unfortunately, or maybe not unfortunately, but they did continue the series recently. They just came out with another novella and I don't think it follows the characters in this. I think it's the same world, different plot. So I'm just going to be talking about this as being the concluding book in this series. So Fearless was the concluding book. It followed Reckless, which I really enjoyed. I think I rated it a 4.25 stars if I remember correctly. And so hopping into that, going into this, I was expecting it to end really well. And unfortunately, I was a little disappointed. This book was not badly written, and that was not my issue with this book. I think I had a lot of issues plot-wise with this. I feel like this book was really repetitive to the rest of the series. It's still giving the same enemies to lovers, but it doesn't add on to anything in the situation. They're in the same position as they were from the first book, so it just felt very one note by the time you get to this book. And this book is really big. It is not it's the thickest book in the series. Oh, it's upside down. How embarrassing. This book is almost 600 pages, so I expected this book to just give me everything I want in 600 pages, but in reality, again, it just dragged on. I honestly, by the time I got to like maybe midway or a quarter into this book, I already was over it and I just wanted to know the ending, but I wasn't really that interested. And that's a lot. I feel like usually fantasy books, especially when it comes to the concluding book, I am just at the edge of my seat, really rushing to get to this ending and figure out what is the end for all of my favorite characters. And in reality, I think I was indifferent for most of these characters. Like I liked Kai and I liked Peyton. I didn't have any issues with any of the characters, but I also didn't care enough about any of them. While I was happy with the ending and the ending was fine and interesting and all that stuff, I also feel like some plot twists were thrown into it. I also felt there is a plot point that is, again, super repetitive, and I was just like, why did they add this back in? Like, why did it really make sense or add on to the plot? Because I really felt like it didn't. I don't know. I just felt a little disappointed in this, and actually I ended up rating this a 3.5 stars. I know some people really enjoyed this, but I feel like after reading Reckless and seeing that the writing had improved and the plot was moving in a way where I felt like the relationship between the two main love interests was really like exciting, and I was really excited to read where it went next. I felt really disappointed, I think, by this book. Overall, I think I would rate this series a 3.5 stars. It's not bad, it's not great, it's just fine. It is a palate cleanser, I guess, and I did like it for that reason. It was just really easy to read, but I think I said this in the last video, I think I'm honestly going to unhaul this series almost immediately. So, I mean, take that as you will. At the end of September, I also read Wild Reverence, and this book was amazing. I received an ARC for this, so I actually was reading this originally digitally, but Book of the Month had a copy of this. And since my Divine Rivals duology is also in Book of the Month format, I said might as well get this one. I really, really love this book, especially after reading Fearless. Reading this, the writing is just so beautiful. The metaphors, the description, the world building in this was so cool. If you are a fan of the Divine Rivals duology, I think you'll at least really enjoy this. Maybe not love it as much as I did, but really enjoy it. They do a really good job of explaining the world more so than in the Divine Rivals, because the Divine Rivals felt more like a historical romance with magical realism elements, while this one definitely gave you the magic that you probably were hoping for. This book really just did a really good job of I don't know, the romance was so good, the plot was really good. I feel like the character development of our main character Matilda was really fun. It explained more about the gods and the goddesses. Again, this is a prequel to the Divine Rivals series, so you get a lot more explanation of the gods and goddesses and what happens before the war in Divine Rivals. So it was really fun, and I love the romance between Vincent and Matilda. It was just so cute. I rated this 5 stars. It was probably one of my favorite fantasies. I read a lot of really good fantasies this year, but this is definitely a top contender for sure. If you guys watched my Montreal reading vlog, I did try to read Canadian authors. I stuck to one the whole time. I bought a book by another Canadian author while there, but I only read one author and it was 3 books. The first one in the standalone series was The Last Encore, but it's Elodie Colliard. Oh, I'm so bad at pronouncing names. She is a French-Canadian author and she lives in Montreal, but she wrote her series in Toronto. The first book follows Josh and Avery, and this is a friends to lovers, second chance kind of situation where they had crushes on each other in high school and things ended up not working out, and Josh basically abandons our main character, so when he comes back into her life, there was a lot of doubt and mistrust. And so, in theory, he takes the time to gain her trust back. In reality, the book was not well written, and so it didn't really show a nice gradual regaining of the trust. It kind of just happens overnight. It is a quick story. The book looked really chunky, but the text is actually really big in the editions that I have. I really enjoyed the secondary characters almost more so than the main characters. I enjoyed Miles and her best friend Brooke a lot more than I enjoyed reading about the romance itself. I was a little bit frustrated by the ending as well because I felt like after he abandoned her, the idea of her dropping her whole life to basically follow his dreams, it was, I don't know, interesting. I don't know. I did not love this. I rated it 3.25 stars because it wasn't the worst thing I read, but I wouldn't really recommend this and I really wouldn't reread this ever. And if it wasn't for the fact that I actually enjoy the other 2 books in the series, I would probably unhaul this as well. But this was a 3.25 stars. After this one, I read the second one in the series while also in Montreal, and it is From Paris with Love. This follows Avery's brother Miles and his co-worker slash business partner Riley. Riley comes from a really toxic relationship, and after her divorce, she decides to leave the company because she used to work with her husband and start her own company, and she asks Miles to start it with her. And so they start their own PR company, and it's kind of fun because this one gives you a lot of background growth, so you see the growth in their relationship from the moment that she comes to him and asks him like, hey, we should start a company together, to the moment that they start doing all their research and coming up with a business, to them figuring out which employees they want to hire. And they do it by like time jumps within months, so they do a 1 year prior to where the main book takes place, and then they do little jumps in like between months. So I really like that because I feel like it really set the scene for how their relationship was, what their thoughts were about each other, because it was in dual POV. I really enjoyed this one. The writing was already significantly better than the first one, and the characters were just a lot more fully fledged out. I think it helped that because I got to know Avery and Josh in that one, I enjoyed them actually more in this book than in their own book. Overall, it still was a really quick, easy, fluffy romance. I rated this a 3.5 stars. Then I took a break from Elodie Colliard and I actually read Holly Jackson's new book, and it is Not Quite Dead Yet. This was my book club book. I was really excited because I genuinely have enjoyed all of Holly Jackson's books. She typically writes YA thrillers, and this was her first adult thriller. I will say this book did not really give me adult thriller. It definitely leaned towards YA, but it cursed a lot. Like there was a lot of cursing. That was to make it feel more adult, but in reality, the way that the character spoke, the way that the character behaved was just very young and adolescent, so it was very strange to me. She felt really young. She felt like literally straight out of high school. And this girl's in her almost 30s. I think it was like late 20s, early 30s. This follows Jet, and Jet is part of a town, and her family is well known for different reasons. Her dad owns a construction company and they're really well off. Her mom is part of the council, etc., etc. While going home, she actually gets attacked in her house, and she gets this brain injury, and she finds out she only has 7 days to live. And because of those 7 days, she decides she's going to figure out who attacked her and why. And basically this leads her on a wild goose chase while her and her best friend, they're trying to figure out who did it. It was fun. The audio was terrible. I would not recommend. I did half audio, half digital or ebook, and the audio was not good. All the characters were whiny or nasally, or they came across as just so unlikable. And it's true, a lot of these characters are very unlikable, and I think that is the point. They were extra unlikable because their voices were so annoying. It was quick paced, you got through it quickly, you were guessing and trying to figure out who did it the whole time. I think this might be my least favorite Holly Jackson book, and for that reason I rated it lower than the other ones, but it was still a fun thriller, and if you're in the mood for something that's just quick and snappy and you're gonna breeze through, I do recommend this one. I ended up rating this one at 3.5 stars. Then I went back to the Elodie Colliard books because I've started reading it on the train. I just didn't get to finish it, and this is the final one. It's called Unbearably Yours, and this follows Riley's sister. So Riley was the female main character in the second book, so you hear a little bit about Charlie, and her love interest is Oliver. I did again, if you don't want to hear me explain all this, I did go over it on my Montreal vlog, but Charlie and Oliver were pen pals when they were in college. They were part of a journalism program, and they would write articles to each other while sending like little snippets of notes, and I guess they would both correct and give like constructive criticism. But with these letters, they also got to know each other on a more emotional level, and they had promised to meet up with each other, and for some reason they don't. And so here they are years later. They're both full adults with different jobs and different dreams and everything. Charlie's still actually working in journalism, thinking about it, and she is sent on a project to this town to work in this forest. And of course, who is her guide throughout this whole thing? Oliver. And so this is the first time they're meeting in person because, again, they were only writing letters to each other. And obviously they have a lot of unsolved tension, and they need to figure themselves through that while them also dealing with a lot of their personal issues. And I don't know, I really like this. This book was dual POV, and it wasn't necessarily a dual timeline, but they did set the scene by showing you the letters from when they first started writing each other to the last letter. So they showed you the year of letters, and it shows you the growth of their relationship and why they feel so emotionally connected to one another. So it makes the book a lot more believable, again, when you are hopping into it and they basically are hanging out over the course of like a week. I enjoyed this one the most out of all three. I definitely would rate it from this one to From Love with Paris, From Paris in Love, and then The Last Encore would be my least favorite. I think reading this book, hello baby, hello. So I think this book made me more interested in reading more of her stuff. If it didn't get this good, I probably would not read more of her books in the future. I ended up rating this one at 3.75 stars, and that is super exciting to me because I really, really enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a little predictable, and I definitely completely guessed the plot and why there was, it's not really miscommunication, but kind of, sort of. I guessed it from the get-go, but I still enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. So I recommend this one. And while these are technically connected standalones, I don't think that they are actually connected enough where you really need to read one of them to read the others. They really don't have much interconnectedness except for Avery from the first book popping into both books. It's really not like a big deal at all. Then I read an arc that I received, and it was Read Between the Lines by Emily Kerr, and this follows Leo and Kat. So Kat was dating, like doing online dating, and she met this guy, and he starts asking her for money after they've been texting for like 6 months or so, and he refuses to meet her in person, so she's really suspicious of why this person is asking her for money. And so she works in a library, and Leo overhears her and says, you know what, you're probably being catfished. Of course, she is heartbroken and really distrusting, but she decides that she is going to hunt down who this catfisher is. And she decides to bring Leo along to help her. He was an old cop, or he's a retired cop, and so she thought this would be the best idea. He begrudgingly agrees, and they go on this wild goose chase trying to figure out who it was, like why they did it, etc, etc, etc. The reason that they are even able to hunt down this person is because this is like an exclusive dating app that only works within their city. So it has to be someone based in Oxford, which is where it takes place. It's fun, it's easy, the banter is really cute. I feel like it was very surface level. You don't really get much more beyond that when it comes to Leo and Kat, but it's still a fun read, and seeing them like enjoy each other's company and laugh and get to know each other through like the experience of the whole thing is really enjoyable. I ended up rating this one at 3.5 stars. Then, this is probably one of the best books I read all year, and this is no surprise to anyone who has read it themselves. It is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. Now, this book is so interesting because I feel like I've heard so many people rate and talk about this book. And honestly, until I picked up the book myself, I still didn't really know what it was about. Everyone was like, it's about a small town and hockey. And it's much more than that. It's about a small town who puts all of their hope and faith into a high school hockey team. They have this belief that if they win their tournament, that their country or county or whatever, because it does not take place in the United States. They have this belief that if this high school team wins their championship, that the country will decide to invest money in this small dying town, which is a lot of pressure for these 16, 17, 18-year-olds to have on their shoulders. So this book is written from the point of view of multiple people who live within the town, from the coaches to people who live in the town casually, to the coaches' kids, to players within the team, to just other people within the high school that like are surrounding the person, to teachers. So you get to know different perspectives. The bottom line is hockey is the most important thing in this town's life, and you basically see how that unfolds. I think that this book was really well written. I have never read a book with so many POVs, and for them to successfully be able to fully fledge out so many characters. Like, I really understood all of these characters so well, and it's kind of crazy considering some of these characters would get maybe a page or two and then it would hop to a different perspective, or even less than that, and I still was able to understand all of these characters. No one felt one-dimensional. No one felt like a caricature. No one felt dull. And honestly, even the characters that I was like, oh, like I can't wait to get through their chapter, they were still so interesting. Of course, I had my favorites and people I was rooting for and people that I was excited to read more about, but there was no one I was really dreading. And that says a lot when there are so many chapters. And honestly, I didn't find it even confusing. Again, considering how many people they write about. I really enjoyed so many elements about this book, and it really makes you think also, like, from so many different perspectives. And I can't say too much without giving any spoilers. I do think that this book is best to go into as blindly as possible, which I understand why people don't really say more, but I really enjoy this. I read this so quickly. It isn't the longest book. It's close to 400 pages, at least my paperback copy is, and the text is pretty small, so probably it would be leaning closer to like 425, 450 if the font was a little bit bigger. But I breezed through this book. It was honestly one of the highlights of my year, and I honestly genuinely read this initially because it was supposed to be a book. I thought it was a book, like a 25 in my 2025 book option, but it actually wasn't. I think I remembered putting this book on my list for books I want to read before the end of 2024, so I'm kind of glad that I got into it anyways. And I went to Barnes & Noble immediately and bought the second one. This was a instant 5 stars. It was so good. Finally, I read a Halloween novella. It really isn't a novella though. It kind of felt like a full-fledged book. It is In the Dark by Chelsea Curto. As you know, I love her books. She typically writes, or at least the books that I've read from her are predominantly sports romances. And in this one, she takes a really big step away from that and decided to write a serial killer romance. So it's kind of funny because I don't actually, other than like mafia romances that I've read and stuff like that, I've never read a book that involves a true serial killer that I've enjoyed that much. I mean, I read like the Mindfuck series and I enjoyed that, but I read like the Haunting and Hunting, and I did not like Haunting and Hunting Adeline, and I did not like those books. So I wasn't really sure if I was going to like this. I think this book was fun. It was really spicy. It was really unhinged. It was so unserious and definitely corny and all that, but I feel like if you take it at face value as it being like a not that serious spicy Halloween book, it's really fun because like it follows Hunter and Max, and Max is afraid of haunted houses, and she runs into like basically a private section in the haunted house by accident, and she runs into Hunter, and it is lust at first sight. They both have this instant connection and they both can't stop thinking about each other, and they separate. Nothing really happens. They don't exchange phone numbers or information or anything like that. They have a short conversation and separate. Of course, Hunter, being a serial killer and also delusional and a little crazy, he starts looking into her and like getting background information about her, like her name and maybe where she lives and who she lives with and if she has a boyfriend and where she goes to school. I mean, what she's a teacher, so like what she does for her job, and it's so crazy. But he doesn't do anything else. He just like delusionally looks her up. And of course, on the flip side of things, Max also can't stop thinking about him. And so she goes back to the haunted house and they have like a whole moment and then they finally exchange information. And it kind of goes from there, where he is stalking her and obsessed with her while dating her, while also being a murderer. He's like a good murderer. He's like Dexter, like he murders like bad people, if that makes any sense, but he's still a murderer. And then she's also being like stalked by her ex-boyfriend. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. But I had fun. I read it really quickly. I think I read it in like maybe like a little bit over like 2 days. And I ended up rating it at 3.5 stars. It's not my favorite by her, but it's still not written badly. And it was just a fun time. That's it, you know? And that is what I read over the course of the month, which is kind of crazy. I feel like I read a lot more than I feel like I read, but I also know that I've been like breezing through books, so that also says a lot. That's it for me today, guys, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.